Hello, hello, and welcome everybody back to another episode of the Created Economy podcast. It's our weekly interview series where Greg and I chat with the players from the creator economy at large and discuss the key topics impacting the growth of the industry. You can catch new episodes of the Created Economy podcast every Wednesday, and you can definitely find more about the show, highlights, and other interesting information on our website at createdeconomy.com. Be sure to follow us online on social media on Twitter at Created Economy. Subscribe, like, and subscribe to our videos on YouTube at Created Economy, and also you can find out all the news that we curate on a weekly basis on Flipboard at flipboard.com/@ Created Economy. And while you're there, so this is actually the first of three shows that we do for as part of the Created series. On Tuesdays, you can check out Greg and his friends talking about NFTs and Web3 with Created Works. And also on Fridays, when Greg and I are usually have time during the end of the week, we will banter about the week's creator news. And without further ado, why don't we bring on our guest at this time? Bring on Daniel Sulzberg. He is the freelance illustrator and designer with Danvillage. I'm very interested to chat with Dan just because I think as we've been talking about the creator economy and the in the world of Web3 and NFTs, I've always kind of had this inkling of like, okay, we talked about how the builders do it and how people are getting rich and finding new ways to make money and how NFTs can help to expand the creator economy. But how do you actually design it? How do you actually create these type of things? And so we reached out and Daniel was gracious enough to say, hey, I'm willing to join on and explain it to us. And he has an interesting story to tell. So Daniel, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me today, Ken.
All right. So Daniel, before we get started, I kind of gave a little bit of a teaser about who you are, but for those that don't know, can you tell us what do you do and how long have you been doing it and what kind of interesting projects have you been working on?
I got my start actually as a screenwriter in LA and worked on some shows, and one of them being the show Smallville, which was on the CW network. And my writing partner at the time said, "You're always drawing. Why don't we make some cartoons? You would be great at that." And so I said, "Of course, that makes so much sense." So the two of us started to put together some cartoon projects. And then that led to more and more of me just putting my artwork out there in the world. And it slowly progressed into a lot of freelance illustration projects. And since then has gone from everything from editorial work with, names like the Washington Post or the New York Times or the LA Times to branding projects with Google and YouTube and McDonald's and Red Bull. So I've gotten the opportunity to work with a lot of different clients in a lot of different sectors. Mostly the best part is that I have a lot of different passions outside of art, and I've been able to find ways to incorporate my art into those passions. I love music. As you can see, there's some music posters behind me. So I've gotten the opportunity to work with bands that I love. I love sports, and I've had the opportunity to work with Major League Soccer and other, sports teams that I love. So yeah, it's been really exciting to just watch, using your passions to have the opportunity to work with your passion and combining them together. And then, recently with how digital art has gone, for the longest time between, fine art and digital art, there was such a separation. And with the world of NFTs and Web3 coming the way that it has really sparked an exciting time for the digital artists like myself, and how we can utilize our own artistry to be a part of, new communities.
What is your favorite uh, medium to illustrate for? Right. I mean, you talked about how you've worked on different types of a lot of different clients, a lot of brands. You specialized in you've worked on digital art as well. Is there a particular area that you kind of are drawn to? No pun intended, but are you
Right.
attracted to? Sorry, it's weird things. Um, or and is digital art kind of that new area where you're like, oh wow, this is something I've kind of seen on the periphery, and but now this is a new frontier for you as a creator yourself.
Yeah, I think what really changed the world of digital art was, about 4 or 5 years ago, when people started to make the switch of using like an iPad Pro and an Apple Pencil and being able to draw directly on and not having to use the Wacom tablets that cost thousands of dollars and having to, have this specialized equipment, and now being able to take it on the go and draw everything from the sketching to the inking to the coloring all right there on your iPad. It has really changed the game. And then with social media exploding and the opportunity to take something that you've drawn right there on the iPad and put it out there and let the world see it, and art directors and other people to say, oh, look at what this guy does. I could hire him for a project. Has been just incredible. And it's something that didn't exist when I first started out in the creative world. And back in those days, like, I'm going to age myself here, but you would have to print out a portfolio and like set up meetings and go in and sit down with people and show them the physical portfolio. And it's, that those days are so far gone now. And so to be able to just say, here's my website, here's my Instagram, and here's my Twitter, go check out what I do. And it's really awesome. And I think for artists, if they've figured out their style and their niche, like something that they love and the kind of art that they like to do, there's a home for it. And I think it's just for each artist to figure out what is that home, what is that niche. And then once you find it, just, go in hardcore with it.
Yeah. So what has drawn your attention to the Web3 space, right? I mean, you've mentioned you've worked with the brands, and
Yeah.
I think for creators, well, the creator economy and artists and designers are very much mirrored together. They're very similar
Yeah.
in very close ways. And so and the main revenue obviously is those brand deals, brand relationships and partnerships. But what has kind of drawn your attention to the, I don't know, the NFT space, the Web3 space, as kind of like to help supplement what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think it all started when the big Beeple story, where all of a sudden he was selling $70 million worth of art through an NFT, and I think that kind of made everybody just go, "Wait a minute, wait, what did he just do? How did that just happen?" And I think that was my first moment of figuring out, like, oh, there's something here that's changing. And I think, like most artists and most people, it was this feeling of uh, being scared of a new thing and having to say, oh, this is a whole new world now that I have to learn. I've gotten used to the way things were, and now I have to, like, what is this whole NFT thing? Do I take it seriously, or do I just say, this is a passing fad, I'm not going to get involved? But for me, I started to see the excitement around digital artists happening more and more and more, and people taking personal projects and having the opportunity to take that personal project and create a community around it. And that to me was exciting. It was kind of like a new version of Kickstarter, but just like on a whole nother level. And then for me, all of a sudden, I noticed that the clients that were reaching out to me weren't the same editorial clients or brand clients. All of a sudden, these tech companies were reaching out to me, or people who just had this interest in NFTs and wanted to create a special project but needed an illustrator for it. And this was a whole new sector of clients I was all of a sudden seeing. And one of the most exciting parts was, all of a sudden I got one of those emails, and they were this new company called Yuga Labs.
Hmm.
And I had no idea what that was at the time. I said, this all sounds interesting to me. And then I looked them up and I went, oh my God, these are the guys that do Bored Ape Yacht Club. Like that. And I had heard of them, and I had known what Bored Ape was and how it had revolutionized and changed the NFT game. And I was just so excited to kind of jump in and be a part of their community and learn, everything from them that I could.
What was it about that? Like, I mean, it's to be a part of the Board Apes is kind of like it's obviously a major achievement, right? And some of the work that when we talked off screen, you there's stuff that you can't disclose as
Sure.
as of right now. But can you talk about the process of doing that? And
Yeah.
as an illustrator, it's like, wait, you have to. I'm not speaking in generalities here. You have to illustrate an ape, like. a series of apes? Like, what is that entire process like from start to finish, and based on what you can disclose?
Yeah, so what I can tell you is, they brought me in, they had already created the first series of apes that were out there in the world. But now they wanted to take things to another level. And they had these grand plans for like what they were going to be doing to take things to the next level. So when I first started out with them, they just had me on some really cool merch ideas that they wanted to work on, and some really cool just like brand development projects that they were starting to work on. But as things grew and they added more and more and more people to the company, they started me on newer projects that were going to be a whole new thing that they were working on next, which was really exciting stuff. And I think what was really cool about it was just getting to see how they operate, and to see how with them their whole rule of thumb was like the best idea wins. There's no ego involved. It was really just so based around the community. I was just so blown away by how they bring the community into everything that they do. And that was just really exciting, because I'm so used to the old school guard of like, there's these gatekeepers and those people make all the decisions and nobody else gets a say. And you kind of just draw what they tell you to draw or do what they tell you to do. But with them, it was like, we have this idea. Can you go play around with it? Bring us what you come up with, and we'll just kind of go from there and see what we like. And that was really fun, because it's not always like that.
Yeah. And want to take the time to welcome my co-host Greg to the show. For those that are just tuning in now, or tuning in, just kind of reset the room. We are talking with Daniel Sulzberg, who is a freelance illustrator, to kind of help educate us, or at least educate myself, on how designers actually create NFTs. Greg, if you have any questions, feel free to jump in.
Sorry, I had it starting a little later, and then Chrome has been acting weird where it doesn't let me into things with video streams in them.
Technical issues. Okay.
Literally, I had to restart Chrome. But Daniel, it's great to hear the experience. I guess in the process you just described, are I feel like the economics is sort of a question or conversation to be had here, right? Because most artists struggle, historically, like to sort of like, I think like it takes a specific blend of like hustle and creativity to be a successful artist, right? Because if you don't hustle, like you don't get your name out there, or otherwise it's by happenstance or luck, right? And I think that has made many artists somewhat defensive about, say, like doing work on spec, right? Rightfully so, by the way, right? So I'm kind of curious, like when you get into an engagement like this, right?
Yeah.
Is it, you don't have to share the specifics, but I guess like what are the parameters of working in these projects, right? Is it on spec? Is it a retainer? Is it like equity? Kind of curious about the mix that you're seeing sort of play out as you've, sort of been involved in these projects now.
That's a phenomenal question. It's funny because I have literally seen so many different variations so far for this space, which is interesting. One has been that they just hire you as a contract artist. They are paying you either a weekly or a monthly fee to pump out whatever they need pumped out. And you negotiate whether it's a day rate or, whatever that rate is going to be. And then that's it. That's, there's no getting royalties, none of that. I have now worked with a few other companies, one specifically that I'm working on right now with another tech company, where I am involved in getting basically a flat fee for the project, but then also getting a royalty fee based on how well the project does, and then getting bonuses if it hits certain milestones. So there's a whole kind of built-in system there, which I think is really exciting, because that is something that, the Washington Post isn't going to pay me like more if the newspaper sells more copies. That is something that I think is so cool. Like I worked with Topps last year to create a baseball card set, but how cool would it have been if every single time the card sells and resells, I would have gotten a royalty off of the cards reselling, which is something that I think with NFTs, this is the new space for that. And for me, what I've been really wanting to do, some people I've noticed I think artists are in three camps. They're either in I'm not doing this NFT thing, I'm totally not getting involved. Then there's the second kind, which is like, I'm going to dip my toes in. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to kind of watch the space, see how it works, see how it plays out a little bit. And then there's the third kind where they're literally just like, I got to get in on this right now, this second. I'm going to pump out some stuff and put it out there and see what happens. And so for me, it's been a mixture of the second two. I'm very interested in this space. I see that NFTs are the future. But I see that it will change. I think the current form that we're in right now is a little bit of a bubble. I don't think it's going to last the way it is in its current form, but I do think that there is a long-term play here, and it's just about being able to figure out like, how is that going to work and what's going to be the best strategies, for artists going forward.
I'm curious, I guess, from your point of view, as an artist in the space.
Yeah.
What do you think that future looks like, right? We do a show on Tuesdays here, and we had a number of artists, and one of our friends, that used to co-host with us, she's a 3D artist, and she had a very hard time, for example, imagining what utility around art would look like, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in my mind, I think a lot of NFT projects are moving towards utility. Even with Abhinav, one of our other co-hosts, we were sort of debating back and forth, like, well, should those utility projects still have art, or should they just be, generic or whatever? And my argument was that the more beautiful, the better. But one of the worries I had about if someone's buying for utility, for example, is if they buy for the art, then as a startup or a company who's trying to create value around that utility, maybe they're not aligned with that part of it. And so their perception or value proposition may be different, and so I feel like the art side is where we get all the flipping and most of the flipping and speculating today, which I hope goes away, because I want people to just invest in artists because they like them and not because like they're trying to like get rich off of them per se, right? I certainly want the artist to get richer though in the process, but I'm just kind of curious, when you think about the future, NFTs period, and then I guess artists in NFTs like going forward, like what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot about right now where it's at is a lot about the collectability. Just like when we were kids and whether it was Pokemon cards or baseball cards, this has got a similar vibe to it right now, where people really want to be a part of a community and be in on it. And I think the future is 100% community. It's everything that we do going forward, brands especially, it's going to be completely about finding your community and people that you relate to. And hopefully, for artists, it's not just through our art that we build that community, but it's the messaging in our art, the things that art stands for. If that is something that appeals to someone, then that is what I would want to surround myself with as an artist. If I was having an art show, the people that come and visit me and see my artwork, I would want them to have kind of the same ideals that I have in my art, which is, diversity and positivity and whimsicalness and fun. That's my brand. And those are the kind of people I want to be excited about the art. And I think the other thing too, outside of community, is 100% the utility play, because I think there's something really cool about the idea that, you could have physical pieces of art that come with the digital art. You could have merch that comes out later on through your brand. You could even have meetups or real social events in real life. Whatever the utility is, I think it's just what is going to bring the community of people that like your art around you. It's going to be different for every person. I have a personal project that I'm working on that's based around some IP that I created a while back that I see as an opportunity for get people invested in so we can create something together. And I think that's really exciting, to get the people in your community to not just, support you as an artist by paying for it, but by getting a say in it and getting to create with you and collaborate with you And that's super cool. That's new. We've never had that before. Like, I saw one NFT project right now where you can not just your character could be in animated episodes going further, and you get to create the background to that character's story. That's really cool. Like, you get to invent something that's going to be used in an animated series, and just by being a part of that community. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of really cool ways.
Because art, historically has been a mirror to culture, right? And I think the narrowing here to some degree is it becomes a mirroring of the community, which I think is a very powerful construct for us to be unlocking. And you're right. There's, I think this is where I think like artists can sometimes be very focused on the medium they create in, and this is part of the challenge sometimes of like sort of going outside of it.
Yeah.
But I bought a friend's project. They were on our show last week, Coup Pottery, and she actually commemorated her physical pottery pieces into these like 100 NFT drop like that she did. Are you familiar with the Gemma project? I think they just they're burning now. It's an awesome thing. Like, you basically have this NFT, but you can burn it and get the print, like the real print, like back from the artist, which I think is just awesome, right?
Really cool.
Yeah. We need just more thinking like that, I think, for sure.
Yeah. I think the mindset of an artist, the starving artist that's all alone in a studio by themselves, slaving over, their creative work and creating it for themselves. That's not what this is about. This is about figuring out who you are as an artist and then bringing it to other people. The artwork that I do isn't for myself. It's for other people that love the same things that I do. And that's fun, because then I get to connect my art with people. And if I had to do it by myself and alone, it just would be pointless, And I think those days are kind of, the NFTs are a way for us to show how community and how artists don't have to be alone in their projects anymore. We have, people who are interested, and they might not have the creative chops that we have, but they're passionate and they love the stuff that you're doing, and they want to be a part of it in one way or the other. And I think that's so fun as an artist to be able to include those people.
So I want to kind of dive deep into how you would create an NFT, or actually does not necessarily create, but illustrate an NFT, right? And is there a lot of work that for illustrators to do? As we talked earlier on, I was like, oh, well, NFT projects such as the Bored Apes, there's like 10,000 different variations of an ape. So is there actually an illustrator or a bunch of illustrators who are literally creating 10,000 variations of these apes? Or is there some technology that's at play here? So I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on that, if you can help explain that. But then also, what kind of advice would you give to both designers and illustrators who want to do these type of projects, and also what pitfalls should they avoid as they talk to, I guess, these content creators, if you will, right?
Yeah, I think what you're seeing right now with those variations is, the profile pictures, the PFP avatars, which again I think is a bubble right now that we're going to see people utilizing them here. But I think the future of them is you're going to start seeing them, and we're already seeing this, right? It's in gaming. You can skin your characters with different things. And I think that'll be the future of inside the metaverse, right? You're creating a character that is going to walk around this world and represent you as a person or as a brand. And I have kids, and my little kid, like when he gets older, one day he might say, "Dad, I need $200 to buy some new shoes." And I'll say, "Okay, let's go get those shoes." And he says, "No, they're the shoes that my character wears in the metaverse." So it's that's the future of where it's going isn't just these profile pictures. Right now, I think you're seeing a lot of like cash grabs and people trying to imitate the ones that are successful. Like, we've seen a bunch of different derivatives of these Bored Apes that are very similar, or other animals, or whatever that is. And they are using technology to create these 10,000 versions. So the way it works is everything is on separate layers. They will create, let's say 100 heads, 100 bodies, 100 things that are being held in a hand, whatever it is, 100 backgrounds. And when you take that computation of 100, 100, 100, 100 and times it, for variations, you're able to put it into a program that will run all the variations and spit them out as JPEGs. So you can create, in a day, if I create 10 heads, 10 bodies, and 10 backgrounds, all of a sudden I have hundreds, of, if not thousands, I don't know the math, of characters that just are, unique in their own way, that have bits and pieces of others. And that's why you'll see with the Bored Apes, you'll see some of the bits and pieces are similar, whether it's, the laser beams coming out of the eyes or whatever that is. And people are very excited about having a variation that has a little bit of them in it, and I think that's what's really fun about it, is trying to match the character to your own personality a little bit, which I know is what gets people really excited.
Do you match the characters do you kind of infuse a little bit of your personality into these characters, so it's kind of almost like an Easter egg type of thing? Like when you go to a Disney park, you're like, oh, where's a secret Mickey or whatever, but still kind of adhere to that creative brief that your clients or whoever the NFT owners kind of instruct you to do.
Yeah. I mean, with Bored Ape, everything is intentional. They very much knew what they wanted to do with what they were doing, and had a very incredible grand plan for it all. And it was very impressive to see. The other projects that I'm working on with other tech companies and my own personal ones have been really fun for me, because they've seen my style of art. Because if you look at Bored Ape and you look at my style of art, it's very different. And still to this day, I'm still kind of amazed that I got the opportunity to work with them, because I'm not really sure when they saw my art why they thought it was like a perfect match, because my stuff isn't, that same kind of gritty style that theirs kind of has a more punk rock, harder edge to it. Whereas my stuff is much more kind of kid friendly and fun and happy. And luckily the projects I've been working on ever since, they've said, look, you have a brand, you have a style, do you, and we'll go from there. And that for me has been much more rewarding, because they feel more like me, and I'm able to use what I'm good at and my specialities to bring it to the table.
Two things you said there that are, one, interesting, but I was just looking at your site again, and I have a friend, Scott Beal. He's like a huge lover of beer. He started a company called Laughing Squid ages ago. And I remember sending him a picture from the liquor store one day, and I was like, Scott, we should do a NFT project called Bodega, and like just literally make it labels from all these beautiful like beers and wines and everything else that is coming out. So I hope you do one of those, because that would be amazing and phenomenal, like as a generative project. But
awesome.
To add to what you were saying, I think technology facilitates some of this as well, right? Because, like to Ken's point about like the personalization, right? Like in a classic art sense, it would be more of a commission piece or a bespoke piece where we'd be creating something for someone, right? But to Ken's point about you putting your personality in, there's only so many emotions, for example, right? And you can still like have your buyer take a quiz and then yield them this combination of your interpretation of a bunch of these emotions, right? Like, if you turn out to be like a happy but introverted or whatever it may be, you could interpret all these ideas and like actually build it in a programmatic way, but still like have your sensibilities all over it, but also make it very personalized without even doing anything specific or bespoke, right? And that's the kind of stuff that I'm so excited about, like that, we need more collaborations, I think, between like artists and developers. And increasingly artists are becoming developers, right? In lots of ways, but I think like we could get such beautiful things if we start to combine those things. And the apes is a good example, right? Like think about all the creativity in the potions and all the other things, and how these pieces are interacting and mutating and these things. I mean, no one really like video game people imagine this stuff, right? But artists haven't traditionally done it. Even developers haven't traditionally done it, right? And so now it's this new hybrid that I think is super exciting.
It's really fun to think about, because the space is so new, and it's a little bit like the Wild West, and it's exciting to think about, like, well, if my passion is, let's say, reggae music, how can I bring reggae music through NFTs, and what can I do for that community that's new or different? And it's so fun to think about, like, how we can do all this together, to build these new projects that will have, implications to come. Like, if I was a band, this would be such an awesome thing to do, because if you sold your tickets to a show as NFTs, and then you could say a year later, anyone who was at that Santa Barbara show, we're going to give away, a free album, a free poster to, because we know, you're on the blockchain. We know who was there. And it's so cool. There's just like so many just ways we can do this. And I think as an artist, we tend to be kind of like the first ones in on something like this, and then it expands into so many other realms. And I think that's why you're seeing so much of it being just art for right now. And it's going to be really exciting to see how other industries utilize NFTs and memberships and utility to it. It's really fun.
What advice would you give to designers or illustrators who want to get into NFTs and want to kind of they reach out, they apply, or submit some sort of proposal to do this work? What kind of advice would you give them to ensure that they are successful and that they're not getting basically the rug pulled from under them?
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways to look at it, right? There's the one where it's people wanting to hire you to do that work. And there's the artists who want to do it on their own, create their own project and mint their own project and try to get that out there as well. So there's two versions. I'll quickly just talk about each one. I think when it comes to working with other companies and they're asking you to design NFTs, you very much need to have an NFT lawyer take a peek at it. They exist now, and they're very important, because these contracts, the way that they're written, they can be very hard to know who's going to own these things. And if something's on the blockchain forever, you need to make sure that your art isn't owned by Nifty Gateway or OpenSea. You need to know that it's yours. And so that's really important to know and be part of the contracts, inside of that. And make sure you're not being taken advantage of. Your payment should be just like any other project that you'd work with a brand. It should represent, the amount of work and what the potential of the project, how much it could make is. So I think there's a bit of that to it. And I think when it comes to creating your own NFTs and getting your stuff out there, I think the most important thing, first off, is to do the homework first. I think Gary Vee has this thing where he talks about, like, go do 10, 20 hours of homework first before you do anything. And I think that's true. Learn how to create a wallet, learn how to keep your NFTs safe. I think that's a huge thing as well. And then learn how to mint something and dip your toe in a little bit and mint something to see how it goes, see how it feels. And then from there, the sky's the limit, whether it's creating a series that you want to put out there to the world, or if there's a bigger play, like maybe there's a charity you want to be giving more money to, maybe it's to help Ukraine, whatever it is, you could build that into your project and get that out there just the same way you would have done maybe with a Kickstarter. But now you're able to do it through NFTs. And that's exciting because people want to invest in something that they believe in. And to have the artwork to go with it is an added bonus.
Do you see this as something, as you illustrate your own NFTs, do you think about the implications outside after someone owns it, right? As opposed to saying, like, here's an NFT of, is almost treating it like a comic book, where you buy a comic book, it's like, oh, okay, you buy it, you finish reading it, or you don't read it, you just put it into the wrapper and then you store it away, and then that's it? Or do you think of it as something, as there's something more to this NFT? Like, as an illustrator, you have to think of it as something, as here's a digital JPEG, and then this is what it also could do in the future in terms of unlocking future benefits of tickets, merch, X, Y, and Z? Or is that something that further down the line you think, oh, okay, might as well do that? Or do you bake
For
it up
me,
at the beginning?
for me, it's really important. For some artists, it's just put your artwork out there, let people buy it, and let that be it. For me, I want to create a project that is going to last. I want to be working on it 10, 15 years from now, the same project. And I want it to evolve and grow, and the community for it to evolve and grow and build. Because that, for me, that's what's exciting is, once again, you don't have the gatekeepers that you used to have in the old days here. You can create your own world here. So for me, I've always wanted to have an animated series, but I don't want to wait around forever for Disney or Nickelodeon to discover me or discover my work, or to say, that's the thing we want to do now. I'd rather get out there and find the right people and do it ourselves and get excited about it and have people, collaborate into this. And I think it can be all done through NFTs. And I think that's what's really cool about it, is that these bigger projects, you start here. And sometimes, you have those big gatekeepers, after they see some success, come out to you and say, wow, that thing you built on your own, like, can we buy it from you, or can we be a part of it? And I think that's what's really cool. Like, you're seeing it with Bored Ape. They're literally collaborating with every brand and company out there right now. I know they're dropping something with Super Plastic is coming out. I saw them, post that on Twitter recently. And it's so cool how all these huge brands that they probably dreamed of working for when they first started this project, like, now those brands are reaching out to them and saying, we want to collaborate with you because what you're doing is so cool, and that's the dream of an artist, right? You create something that becomes so culture driven and so iconic that the rest of the world starts noticing it and wanting to be a part of it too. That's exciting for an artist who's sitting in their room by themselves and coming up with some idea that it could go from that, to the whole world seeing it. That's so cool.
Yeah. I think if I would add my 2 cents to, I think, and I agree with you, Dan, but to Ken, I would actually caution designers to not sort of think too far in the future per se, right? Like, classic thing, like with all founders and startup people, right? Like, you can sit there and dream all day, or you can go get to work, right? Mm-hmm. And it causes a lot of paralysis if you're like suddenly paralyzed by every future implication of the thing you're doing right now versus like doing the thing right now, right? And so your art historically has been one of ones, right? Like, that was how art worked, right? Like, you made one and it wasn't like, oh my God, like, do I have to do 12 of these? Or you never had to think about that before. That hasn't really changed, right? If you don't want it to, right? Like, now, if you want to do something different, then I think there is an opportunity to do something different. I'm kind of curious, Dan, as well, like, one of the hard parts, I think, for new artists coming into the space, and I'm kind of curious your experience or maybe any best practices you've learned. How do you vet a project, right? So, someone comes up to you and they're like, hey, Dan, we'd love for you to come and design this thing for us, right? Like, it's going to be this and this and this, and they're going to promise you the moon, right? How do you know, like, or how do you help your friends or your own, as we're all onboard everybody every day, right? How do you help them find or telltale signs of like a good place to be versus maybe not, like, or cautionary tales?
Yeah. I think that a lot of it has to do with your own sensibilities. Like, when people approach me with a project, I look at that project first and I think I know right away, like, is this me in this project? If it isn't, and I have to stretch myself to be an artist that's not me, then I think to myself, I'm just going to tell these guys, I have some other people that I think are very talented that would fit this project better than me. And I'm always happy to pass along things to other illustrators that don't fit for, that aren't a good fit. And I think there's also a difference between, like, when a company comes to you that has backing that has funding, that knows like the game a little bit, and or has minted themselves a project and already had some success, you know, okay, these people I'm getting involved with know how to do this, right? And you also get these people that are just random one-off people that reach out to me and say, I have an idea for an NFT, and I would you want to make it with me? For me, those kind of projects are tough because they usually don't have any backing. They don't have any, pay structure set up. They kind of want to do it as more of a collaboration. And I understand that, and that's cool. I would do the same thing if I wasn't an artist myself. I would reach out to artists and say, can you help me make this thing? But for me right now, with how busy I am and with when I do get free time, I want it to be for my own personal NFT projects. I want to be able to work on those. So for me right now, I'm only going to take on an outside NFT project if it's something that really excites me, or it's from a reputable company that knows this world a little bit.
What is the average time of a project that you spend on? Is it like 3 months? Is it a year? Obviously, it gets a little bit more complex if you based on how many different variations you would have to create. But on average, have you thought about like it could be 3 months, a 3 month project here and there, 6 months, 2 weeks, or is it 24 hours and there you go?
Yeah, I mean, they've varied for me so far. I've had ones that are as short as 3 weeks to pump out, a certain amount of variations, which, to be honest, it's not too hard once you know exactly the scope of the work and what you want to do with it. And for me, I'm a character creator, so that anytime that if that's the kind of the project it is, that's my wheelhouse. So for me, that's kind of fun and easy. If the project's bigger and they want to create like landscapes or concept art or something that's more grand in scheme, those are going to take, your months or even a year, who knows, whatever the scope of the project is or what they're trying to do. With Bored Ape, they are constantly working on new projects, almost to the scope level of like the way a gaming company would work. If you worked for like Epic Games or Riot Games or something, you would just be creating concept art 24/7, every day. And I think a lot of these bigger NFT companies, they're functioning the same way now.
Right. Do you see um is it talk as we kind of mentioned earlier, as we teased earlier, there are some companies that are kind of exploring NFTs themselves, big name companies that are traditional tech companies, right? For example, with like YouTube or Twitter or Time, for example, Time Magazine is exploring this type of stuff. They're not foundationally a tech company, and two, you would probably not look into them and saying, oh yeah, they're total experts in terms of Web3. So likely they're either going to be bringing people in house or hiring experts as contractors. Do you see that in your space where as an illustrator, the companies that you work for, this is kind of the type of thing where they may think this is interesting, we want to see where this is going, but we don't necessarily want to make that genuine investment and have someone on full time, because what happens if it doesn't work, right? And
Right.
to their satisfaction, what happens if it doesn't work? Or they wind up saying, "Hey, this is not how we envisioned it." Blah blah blah. They pull an AT&T type of situation with Warner Media. Anyway, so do you see that happening more with companies? What kind of advice would you give to designers and brands who want to pursue this type of route, saying, I see this Web3 space, we're looking into it, so we'll kind of experiment with this. What kind of thoughts do you have on that?
I think I'm really excited about it because I think this is a whole new version of brand partnership that illustrators can do or artists can do with brands. And I think that can be part of your pitch to a brand that really fits you as an artist. If there's a brand out there that really matches what that the brand stands for, the same kind of ideals that your art stands for, why not reach out to them and say, look, you guys have never done this. I want to create an NFT series based, with your brand. I think that's an exciting new play to reach out to a brand and ask them that. They're all curious about it in some form or another, whether they're going to do it or not. And why not reach out to some of the marketing people from those brands and say, I want to do this kind of NFT project. Would you like to be a brand partner in it? Because that might be something that they've either not thought of yet or not thought of in that way. So I think it's really cool because it's a whole nother way that you can reach out to brands that didn't exist, a few years back.
Greg, any other questions you have?
Yeah, I guess I saw this funny, someone said this on Twitter. They're like someone was asking like, hey, how do you find a job, right, in Web3 or whatever? Just go put Web3 on your LinkedIn, right? Like in 2-3 days you'll have like job offers. I'm kind of curious, are there any resources that you think are good or tips on how to find work in the domain? Like I haven't actually come across them actually. It's usually like this very disparate thing, like in Discords and like finding projects and maybe a way to participate, but that doesn't get you in the early part, right? That's kind of usually later. So any ways that you found, and obviously you're a far more like achieved sort of successful artist now, so you may not have to do this anymore, but I'm just kind of curious if anything's come up in your network or through your friends.
I mean, the only thing I can speak to that about is the projects that are out there that if you are a big fan of it and you love it and your art really can match what they're already doing, then you can 100% reach out to these, to these different NFT projects and ask them if they have openings for, whether it's marketing them or whether they need more illustrators or designers to work on the project. I think there is nothing wrong with doing that. And I think a lot of people have had success doing it that way. I think it's harder with the stuff that hasn't come out yet because you don't know who's doing what, right? Like, and these Web3 brands are changing so quickly and that it's hard to like figure out like where those jobs actually are. So I've been fortunate that I've had a few of them reach out to me. And when they have, I've had to literally look them up because I had never heard of them before to see like what they do or where they just came from. And a lot of them are so brand new, like they literally started this year. And so it's kind of cool because it's a whole new area of clients that are reaching out to me now that didn't reach out to me a couple of years ago. And now that I've done a few of them and I have a few that are going to be dropping soon through some of these brands, I'm hoping that more of it will come because I really love doing it. And I see the potential in it and I want to make more and more of these. It's really fun.
Seems like there needs to be some sort of a non-shady version of Craigslist for this type of situation where, creators, NFT owners, if you will, or I guess, what are we calling it? Entrepreneurs can put out listings or calls and say, hey, I need a designer or an illustrator for this type of project. And it's almost like a bulletin board, like this, rip this tag off and there's a number that you can dial or email us or, to let us know that you're interested in this job. So maybe there's some sort of a service that could be created from that.
I wonder if that's even, you might either be onto something or somebody's, I feel like that's got to exist, right? It's like,
I think it does exist. I've seen or heard of a couple of things in this arena. Problem is they're not prominent yet because I can't even remember them, right? Yes. Like
I see it on like Upwork and sites like that where it's people who are just like, I'm doing this NFT project, I'm looking to hire a freelancer, but they only want to pay you like a couple $100 to create a ton of artwork.
It's a Fiverr. It's very
exactly. And it's just, as an illustrator, like stuff like that kind of frustrates me. And I get it, like if you're a young artist and you're trying to like get some stuff into your portfolio and you just want to get in on some projects, I get that. But once you get to a certain level where this is your life, your livelihood, you're not gonna do those kind of projects. I've also seen on like Behance, a lot of people who have their Behance profiles, like the job boards on there. Sometimes I see like they're looking for an NFT illustrator on those. But again, I'll see where they're from and it'll be, somewhere kind of shady or weird, or it just doesn't feel legit. Yeah. Or just even the way the listing is listed, like written, you're like, they're not even spelling words right. in the listing, I'm not going to respond to this, you know?
We don't need a back page type version of the Web3 NFT space.
Yeah.
But I mean, also like, yeah, having it be on like Behance or Flickr or any place where people can showcase their work would be very helpful. The only downside is that's not where necessarily the Web3 people are, right? They're on, Discords and other,
Yeah.
Twitter and stuff
Right.
like that. So there needs to be ways to kind of have that seamless vetting process, if you will, right? If you go into Discord, you can kind of see, oh, I'm interested in this, or I'm hiring for this. Okay, click on that, and I can see, oh, Daniel's bona fides, like, oh, this is the type of illustration that he's done in the past. Okay, I want to follow up and at least have that conversation, as opposed
And
to
that's why it all comes back to community, right? Like if you're super excited about a project, you go join their Discord, you get involved. Like that's the best way to either find the job or to showcase your work through that. And the people, if they know you're part of the community, they're going to champion you and they're going to, love to help you out. I think that was one of the things that blew me away the most about the Bored Ape community was like just how supportive they are of each other and how they really like recognize each other in that Discord. It's like it's incredible to watch. It's kind of mind blowing, and I think that's that's how you do this. If you find some projects that really fit you and your community, you're gonna find those people naturally through that.
Gotcha.
They're gonna reach out to you. They're gonna see your work on there. They're gonna want to get to know you, and then you're gonna get job offerings.
So the moral of the story is there are no shortcuts.
There are no shortcuts. I have had a few people call me and be like, dude, like we could make millions of dollars. Just put your art out there. And I'm like, bro, that's not how this works. Like you can't just, you're like a tree in the forest. Like no one's going to hear it unless you have a community behind the project, some serious backing, maybe even influencers or celebrities that are excited about it, that are posting about it, that are helping you get to that level. I mean, the rest of these projects, they're gonna fall away in the next 2-3 years. They're 98% of these are just gonna disappear off the planet, and the ones that are left are the ones that had that community behind it.
Are you telling me? Are you telling me Field of Dreams has lied to me? That I'm
you build it
and people will come, and that's not the case.
Kevin Costner would never lie to you.
Pursue Kevin Costner. Waterworld 2.
Right?
Not really. No. Although they're pretty close to that. So I guess the final question I have is, how excited are you in terms of as an illustrator for the metaverse? Right, as you talked about how you're going to be creating. On one hand, there's the NFTs, which are the digital art, but with the metaverse, there's a lot more opportunities you're literally creating everything that anyone needs in a virtual world. How exciting is that opportunity for illustrators and designers right now? And will we see, because there's obviously some criticism and concerns about Web3 in the artist world, but what are your thoughts in terms of how this progresses in the next, 2 to 5 years from now?
Yeah, I think it's funny, like when all these new technologies come out, the first reaction is usually to be fearful of it or not want to do it. It's kind of like when social media first kind of hit, everyone was like, oh, now there's this new social media I have to like put a profile on and I have to now do this again. Like it's a fear that happens in the beginning. And then I think once people start hearing the terminology and get involved in it and start to play around with it, they get excited about it, right? And I think that's what's going to happen with all of this as well. Right now, this whole metaverse thing it's still so like, it doesn't really all make sense yet because we're not in one metaverse yet. Like everything is so like everyone's doing their own separate metaverses. Like there isn't one full on one where everybody exists within it yet. And so I think it'll be interesting to see like how do we start like building these things together and making it more of a united front. And maybe that's what'll be the future of this is figuring that out in a cool way and not in some like, seeing like what Facebook's trying to do, like that gives us all the cringe factor of this, that's big brands like that. We don't, as an illustrator or designer, I think most people, it's not authentic and it's not cool, you know?
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you, Daniel, for joining us on this episode of the Creative Economy. Really great hearing your experience with NFTs and the Web3 space. And thank you for educating me in terms of how the whole process works from an Illustrator standpoint. I've been curious for a while, thinking, oh, well, I can, I'd like to create an NFT project, but I had like, where do you start? And like, how do I have that conversation with creative people? And so this has been very, very enlightening and educational. Greg, any final thoughts?
Last question: are you old school Illustrator type or new school Procreate type?
I'm still a bit of both, because I will definitely still be drawing on sketch pads and notebooks and stuff when I'm out and about. But man, Procreate is a game changer, and it is awesome.
Yeah.
The fact that it would only cost like $10, and
it's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous.
Incredible thing. Yeah.
Well,
and then the last thing I'll just say is, if any of your community has any further questions for me, online or anywhere else, feel free to reach out. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter at Danvillage Art, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And I appreciate you guys giving me this opportunity to speak about it.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Really great to have you. Thanks for all your success. Congrats again, Daniel. It's amazing to see you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Cool. Hey, why are you on the big screen? There you go. Stop that. So that was great conversation. Love knowing that, hearing more about that. And there's many more amazing interviews like that to come on the Creative Economy podcast. Quick little plug here. The CEX, the Creator Economy Expo, is coming up on May 2nd to the 4th in Phoenix, Arizona. Go to cex.events and you can get $200.
Drop a like if you want me to go. I will. I can go and cover it for the show.
Yeah, if you want to see Greg in Phoenix, and I know that Francine will want to see you in Phoenix, but if you want to see Greg in Phoenix,
you need to go to Phoenix just to kill her robot.
Okay, that was something I need to watch the previous episode of Creator Works. That's you can watch
your own show, Ken.
Well, technically, I'm not on that show, so but you know what? Hey, if you want to see the show, go. You can actually watch recaps on our YouTube right there, right down below it, right there. But anyways, no, if you want to go to CEX 2022, you can save $200 on your registration fee using the discount code CREATED, CREATED. Yes, I'll learn how to spell. That's great. And with that, Greg, thanks so much for joining us today. And we will see you all, I don't know, next time on the Creative Economy podcast.
That's right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.